Hello, everyone. Father Norm here. We're probably all aware of the horrific earthquake that happened in Morocco, and they're saying now possibly 3,000 or more people have died. We don't know them by name, but we certainly can look at that and say, so many people, how do we even fathom it? How do we even express a prayer or a concern? Because again, those are 3,000 individuals. I want to jump back that kind of ties in with that from my own mind to on Monday this past week. It was 9/11, and it was just about 3,000 people from the United States who died because of the terrorist attack there on that day. And even there, we certainly, how do you fathom that? I do know that each year people are focused on and people are remembered, and on this particular day, I know for me, it brings great emotion all the way back. We're reminded for anybody that grieves, if you grieve one person in your life, whoever that is. My mom, for example, she died 26 years ago. I still miss her. And there are times when I think about her and I can smile at so many good things that happened, but I can also grieve and let people know, whether it's a huge thing like Morocco or 9/11, or it's individual members of people that we have loved personally, that grief is understandable, legitimate, and it's born out of love. And would we choose not to love? Of course not. But I want to say a little bit more about 9/11. I'm probably repeating myself from the last couple of years, but I'm saying that because I want to talk about two different people that I got to know, their surviving members who loved them very deeply. As I think many of you may remember, I had the opportunity to be at the first year anniversary of 9/11 in Pennsylvania, where Flight 93 went down, and seeing many of the family members there, and then 10 years later seeing them again. Here's two stories I may have said, but it reminds me that even when we're looking at Morocco, each individual matters, and each individual in some way can touch our lives, and we can pray for and ask that they be with God, that we can believe that the ultimate reality is not what sin or evil does or what death happens, but the ultimate reality, a God of goodness and love who wants to have the ultimate say of love and life forever. Two quick stories. One, a fellow by the name of Patrick Welsh that I met, or actually he told me his story a year later when all the surviving family members were there in Shanksville. And he mentioned that he thought his wife was okay, that she wasn't on that flight, Deborah Welsh. And so he felt positive about that, although he grieved hearing about the others. Then later in the day, he got that phone call in which somebody said, oh, Deborah had exchanged with somebody else and ended up was on that flight. Obviously, he was devastated. He talked to me a year later about just the great pain that he still felt. But he also talked about hope and faith. He said his own pastor had just come up to see him when he heard about it, and Patrick was going to go down to the neighborhood bar. He didn't know if he was going to drink too much or just be somewhere where nearby where friends were, and the pastor went with him. And he said that meant so much. Didn't take away the pain, but he said in the midst of that, we're all reminded that the pain and the awfulness of that we need people to come by our side. When you know anybody grieving anytime, a year ago, 20 years ago, how we can walk with people, listen to people. They don't have to apologize for their grief because it comes out of love. A second example there from that 1 year later in Shanksville was a fellow whose daughter, Deborah Bodley, she was on her way back to California to go to school there at Santa Fe. I think I can't remember. It's San Jose or one of those. I think it was that one that she was going back to. And the point being that she was on that plane, going back to college to start again. And of course, she was killed with the others on Flight 93. And when I talked to her dad shared his story, that he was bitter, that he wanted everybody from Afghanistan, who some of them were from there, wiped off the face of the earth. But over the course of the year, he remembered his own daughter, what she was doing when she was at that university in California, was encouraging people of different faith traditions, different cultures, even different political persuasions to come together to seek to understand one another, to not simply judge one another, but come together in peace. And so this dad, as he reflected, yeah, he was bitter and angry for a long time. But he said more and more it was as though his daughter in eternal life was praying for him, and that powerful example that what he needed to do to come to it, to actually forgive. And I probably shared his story before, as he told me he not only forgave, but he went with another one of his kids. They went to Afghanistan and reached out to orphanages there, believing that that's what his daughter would want him to do. Take hatred and return it with love. Take vengeance and return it with forgiveness. And so 2 examples, but again, those stories, Morocco, there's 3,000 stories. We'll probably hear some of them individually. And remember and pray for all people, and pray that somehow, some way, someday on planet Earth, we will no longer have that kind of vengeance and killing and murder that too often happens. And if we are dealing with something like a natural thing, like the earthquake, that we'll all reach out and say, hey, these people are part of our human family. What can we do to not dismiss them and say, well, they're not Americans, why do we care about them? No, we care about them, and I'm sure many people even here will be reaching out to help the folks in Morocco deal with that awful situation. God bless you. Let's keep each other in prayer, and let's be able to believe and pass on to others that love is stronger than death. God bless.